Hi everyone, welcome to my special end of the year episode for 2019. This was a really exciting year for me personally because I bought a Nintendo Switch and I started to learn about modern 2D games. I'd been completely ignoring them forever basically, so it was really exciting for me to see the new, indie games that employ the 2D graphics, that try to get back to the old school feel, and I discovered a lot of really interesting games. So today I'd like to introduce the 10 games that I enjoyed the most in 2019. Now that doesn't necessarily mean the top 10 games that were released in 2019. This just means the games that I discovered this past year. So some of them were released in 2019 and some of them weren't. Some of them are actually just retro games. But I think it's a really fun list. One disclaimer I'm going to give right now, Roly is not going to be on this list. It absolutely would be. It was one of the funnest games I've played this whole year, but it technically hasn't been released yet. Roly is planned for, I think, February 2020. What I have is a review copy, so it wouldn't really be very nice if I stood here talking about how much fun I had playing Roly when no one else can play it yet. So that's not going to be on this list, but that's okay. I almost certainly will make it into next year's list because it's an awesome game. Hope you pick it up. So let's get straight into it. First up, number 10 is Radio Allergy Swag. Now, Radio Allergy is abbreviated as Rajirugi in Japanese. That's the Japanese title. This was originally a game made by a company called Milestone. I've done a video covering all of the 5 shooters that they made, and there were 2 in the Radio Allergy series. And a little while back, I saw news that someone was planning on making a new game in that series with that name. So I was really excited for this. And it did come out, I think maybe back in April or May or something of 2019. It's digital only right now, but there is an American company planning on printing physical copies. Hopefully those will be ready early next year. So right now it's only digital, and I think it is only on the Japanese Nintendo Switch store. So unfortunately, you might not be able to play this in the West without a Japanese account right now. And this game is a bit different from the first Radio Allergy games. This one is more like a score attack than it is like a real arcade shooter, with 5 or 6 stages. It just kind of, flows from one section to the next. It's not like stage boss, there are no bosses. And basically, what you're trying to do is there's a whole bunch of different items that pop up, and you can switch through them with the sword like you can in the other games. And what you're trying to do is there's an item that makes enemies come faster onto the screen and also shoot more bullets. And if you keep picking those up, then you can essentially keep the invincibility meter powered up, indefinitely, so you can stay invincible if you're quick on the draw. But the whole idea really is to try to get a high score. It's not all that difficult to make it to the end once you know what you're doing. But that's actually a very tricky thing to do. And it's just the hecticness of what's going on is crazy. It's like at first you'll just have no idea what's going on. It's one of those games where if you're not really into video games and you saw it, it just looks like pure insanity. And it kind of is insanity. It's like eating 1,000 cakes at once. But it's crazy. As usual, it's extremely unique. So I've had an extraordinary time playing that. That was a game that I was looking forward to that pretty much delivered what I was hoping for. Really looking forward to get the physical copy of that too. Number 9 is Kawaii Shin on the PlayStation 1. Hopefully you saw my review video of this from a couple weeks ago. If you haven't, definitely check that out. Very strange game. I got this just around the end of last year, so pretty much I was playing it in 2019. It is a horror game, but it's not just a text adventure like you might think from a Japanese PlayStation 1 game, or some kind of 3D, action adventure. It's not quite a rhythm game. It's hard to explain. Basically, you find ghosts trapped inside pictures and then exorcise them using these kind of like button sequences that are almost like a rhythm game or like a quick time event, you might say. And it's just the atmosphere is just out there. The gameplay, it's not like revolutionary or anything. Some people might think it's a bit tedious because you're kind of doing the same thing over and over for the whole game. But the premise and just the overall execution are really good, and it's really satisfying. Like, there's a moment where it becomes zen-like, where you actually feel like you're exorcising ghosts, sort of. And I actually had a really fun time playing it through. There's 3 loops. and I beat them all and got the bonus image artwork and all that stuff. So this obviously, is not a recent game, it's like 2002, but I had a lot of fun discovering it. It's just one of the oddest, most buried hidden gems out there. Alright, number 8 is Oniken by Joy Masher. I got the physical Switch version on the double cartridge that comes with Oniken and Odalis. This was the first time I had ever played it. I think it's been out for a few years, but I don't play Steam or anything like that, so I discovered this in 2019. Amazing 8-bit style side-scrolling action game, and it's unbelievable how much it makes you feel like you're playing a Nintendo game. Like, it's too good, it's too accurate. Like, it feels like almost unfair difficult at first. Like, the music is like, it's 8-bit style music, but it's almost like they purposely kind of like made it low fidelity or like not quite on beat or something. And it's really, really fun game to play. It's kind of similar to Vice Project Doom, you could say, in the game mechanic. But I was extremely pleased. This was just as fun as I was expecting. So thank you very much to PlayAsia for making physical versions of this game so that I could play it and have a great time with it. Number 7 is Bari Arm for the Sega CD. This is called Android Assault in the West. The Japanese title is Bari Arm. I've had a number of Sega CD games sitting around waiting to be played for years and years, and I finally bought one this year. So this is the first time I ever played this game. I bought it to record the music off it because I think I'd heard it, on YouTube, and it was so cool. But I've just had it sitting on my shelf, and finally I was able to try it out. It's almost like the Sega CD's Gate of Thunder. It's probably not quite as good as Gate of Thunder, but it's a badass 16-bit shooter, and it's like, people don't really talk about it the way they talk about Thunder Force or, Gate of Thunder or those kinds of things. And it's pretty damn well done. The artwork is awesome, the music is freaking amazing, the gameplay is pretty cool. It's not extraordinary, it doesn't do anything like, really revolutionary, but it's a Sega CD game, and it flows nicely. The one thing about it is the last level is much, much harder than the rest of the game. In fact, if I had known about Bari Arm, I think I would have included it in my list of the biggest difficulty spikes in retro games. I have no idea how I found the patience to beat it, but I did. And it's rather frustrating at the very end, but everything else is really cool. So I had a blast playing this, and it was like discovering a really awesome 16-bit game for the very first time, despite how many years I've been retro gaming. Number 6 is Silver Valley on the Sega Master System. Now if you're saying, what the hell is that? Good question. This is a homebrew game made for the Sega Master System, and you won't believe it's a homebrew. It's made completely by one person, graphics, music, programming, everything, and it is out of this universe. The quality of it. It's huge. It's like 81 levels. I mean, they're separated into like smaller sections. So you would probably say it's like 8 or 9, full like worlds or stages. But it is massive. Just the idea. It's like you're on this huge journey, but it's a platformer. It's not an adventure game. But there's kind of like a story to it. There's atmosphere. Every world is different. There's like multiple types of gameplay. There's like part where you're flying on a dragon, where you're like on a raft on the water. It is crazy. It's super hard, but in a good way. I think it gives you infinite continues too, so you can just keep trying and trying. But like, this is out of this universe, the quality. I mean, it can stand along the original Sega Master System library easily. It is definitely one of the best platformers on the console. I think it's a couple years old now. It wasn't released in 2019, and this is not like some officially printed cart. This is just something somebody probably put a flash cart into an old Mega Drive casing, but that works perfectly for me. I can play it on the Mega SG, and I'm absolutely loving this. Please do check it out. Into the second half, number 5 is Power Strike 2. Yeah, 2 Sega Master System games in a row. This is a legend. This is a real holy grail. I've known about it for a very long time, but I finally bought it this year, and I'm glad I put up the money to get it because it's every bit as awesome as I was expecting. Power Strike 2 is a vertical shooter made by Compile. It was not sold in Japan or the US. It was only sold in Europe and Brazil basically. There's a long story behind it. I'm definitely going to make a full-length video of it because there's a lot to talk about. But basically, it was meant to be played in 50 Hz, which has made things very difficult for people living in the NTSC regions, like me in North America or Japan, to play it properly. And now with the Mega SG we can. So I've been, I played through normal mode. It was actually a lot harder than I was expecting. Some of Compile's games, just on normal difficulty are not particularly hard. This one is quite sufficiently hard on normal, really gets hard on hard mode, and it's just a miracle on the Master System. So it was very much worth the money. Number 4 is Blazing Chrome, another game by Joy Masher, and another game that's only available digitally right now, so I've been playing it on my Switch. This is basically a love letter to Contra Hard Corps. It's made by Joy Masher, this company that's been giving us some amazing 2D old-style games, and it is every bit as good as it looks. Like, it is really, really something. The play is absolutely beautiful. Bosses are enormous. It's very hard at first, as most 16-bit games can be. But you learn how fast enemies run, the angle that you're shooting at, how your jump momentum feels, and you can do it. I've beaten it without continuing a couple times. This is like one of the best games released this year. I mean, this is a legend, and it just makes it so sad that Konami doesn't try to make really nice 2D style action games anymore. This other Brazilian company has had to pick up the ball where they left it. So I highly, highly recommend this to everybody. It's been pretty big news, and there are physical releases coming out. I believe they said February. Sadly, I missed the reservation window, whatever, the 30 minutes that I had to get a limited edition one, because I definitely want the soundtrack. It is amazing. So I'm gonna have to buy it from a scalper on eBay when it comes out. It's annoying, but what can I say? I want the limited edition of Blazing Chrome. Getting up towards the top here. Next, number 3 is Monster Boy on the Nintendo Switch. This is basically a new sequel to Wonder Boy. So it's a 2D action RPG. It's a real proper action RPG. It's not a Metroidvania. There are, main town, and then, there's areas where you search around, and then there are dungeons, like a real action RPG. It's the first 2D action RPG I've seen or really played through probably since Monster World 4, I think. So this was not Japanese developed. I believe it was mostly developed by French people, but the musicians, there are quite a number of Japanese people in the composers, and some of them are really famous. Motoi Sakuraba's in there, Yuzo Koshiro's in there, and the gameplay is just top of the line. It's unbelievable how much time went into this thing. The 2D hand-drawn graphics are beautiful. They're everything you could hope for. As you would expect from those names, the music is extremely good, and the dungeons are a really good mix of action and puzzle solving. Some of them are huge, and it is an amazing experience. These are the kinds of games that, I wish would come out more. So, you hear that there's going to be a new Wonder Boy game, and you're like, man, is this going to measure up to the old ones? And it does. It overtakes them easily. So, highly recommend this. Number 2 is a game that everyone who knows me already knows is going to be on this list. It's Tanzer for the Sega Genesis, or the Mega Drive. This is an independently developed game, homebrew, for the Sega Genesis. It did come out this year, mostly made by one person, this person Michael Tillander, and it is a miracle. It's easily as good as the top 10 Sega Genesis games that were released, while the Sega Genesis was active. The control is smooth. It's like, platformer, hack and slash. You could say not exactly a hack and slash because you mostly kill enemies with one hit, really. But, you're this sort of you're a ballerina turned alien who is out to save the world. Obviously, it's a 16-bit game, so everything's not clear, just as it should be. And the gameplay is just nuts, man. The artwork is out of this universe. Just the creativity of all the enemies and the bosses are weird. You know, there's tons of content to it. There's like a mini boss in every single sub level, and there's like 60 levels or something like that. Or no, there's like 8 worlds and 4 or 5 levels each or something. So you know it's like 40-ish or something like that. But it is huge. It's massive. The gameplay is so tight, so reliable. I mean, there's secrets, there's a good ending and a bad ending, there's everything you could possibly want. I cannot believe how good it is. So I played the crap out of this. I might even try to learn how to speedrun it. Gave that a couple tries. Really looking forward to the next game put out by this guy. We've come to the #1 spot, and I'm going to apologize for it being so unsurprising. It's a game that everybody knows, actually. My #1 game that I enjoyed the most in 2019 was Bloodstained: Curse of the Moon. This did not release this year. It's been out for, I think, at least a couple of years. But it's pretty much the first time that I've really played it. I bought the physical version from eBay. And what can I say about Curse of the Moon that you don't already know? It's an 8-bit style action game. It's a modern Castlevania game. Basically, they can't use the name Castlevania because they don't work for Konami anymore. But it's pretty much made by the same person who made a lot of the Castlevania games. And it doesn't just capture the feeling of 8-bit games. It is everything about that. It's not an imitation. The graphics are exactly what you would want from an 8-bit game. The music is beautifully composed. It is just, the melodies are so accurate of what gaming is supposed to be. The level design is beautiful. It's, you know, pretty challenging at first, but really you learn some enemy patterns and you discover this can be done. There's, you know, multiple loops. There's different characters you can take with you, or you can choose to not take them and get different abilities. There's many different ways to play through the game, and it has the emotion. It has the atmosphere. It's a real true 8-bit game in the modern era, and I wish Japanese people would do this more often, because they can when they try. I just wish the Japanese game developers would make more games like this, because nowadays most of the really serious 2D games are coming from Western companies. And Curse of the Moon shows us that when they put their minds to it, the Japanese developers can still make games every bit as amazing as they did in the 8-bit era. So I played the crap out of this, and I will probably play it again and again throughout the years. So those were the 10 games I would say I had the most fun playing in this past year. You probably noticed that a lot of them are modern games done in the 2D or retro style. And that's telling that this past year I've spent a lot of time trying to get into those games more, because I've spent decades, going through the 8 and 16 and 32-bit consoles already. So now that 2D has been picking up again, there's been people working really hard to give us, traditional gaming experiences. Figure it's time to, get into those and give them some love. And I've had an amazing time doing it. There's still a lot more to go through. I've got tons of games that I've barely even played, honestly. It's just, it's hard to find the time as an adult sometimes to play all this stuff. But next year, I'm going to get into them. So thanks a lot for checking out this video. If you know of any other really cool old style games that came out this past year, or any other games you want to recommend, please do tell me about them in the comments. I don't need to know about Death Stranding, so no need to talk about that. But yeah, these other 2D games that are coming out that, people are working so hard on, please do let me know about them if you have anything cool. Thank you for checking out the video, and I will see you next year.